Welcome back to
the room that we created.
What a room we did create.
A marvelous room to share for two. Cut it. Oh, fuck.
No, don't cut it. Don't cut it.
That's exactly what they said, and they fucking took mine anyways.
So I believe we left off.
Not with that.
Not with that. We left off. If you haven't seen part 1, last week's episode, please watch it for context, for Christ's sake. No pun intended.
Pre-room we created.
Pre-room we
Pre-room created.
So, I'm out of frame a little bit.
Oh, son of a bitch.
Well, anyway. Last week we were discussing my origin story, being raised as a Jehovah's Witness, my descent into madness, my resurrection, my phoenix-like
all the fucking
into
stages of being Jesus Christ.
Right. And we were also talking about my parents and their relationship to my waking up from the church that they raised me in, and their consequential waking up from it as well after I left.
And we were
They
about to
me.
tell a tidbit story about Maddie's father making a joke, and then the best, like, the answer to the human question, why do these awful things happen, and after your father's answer, I'd like to get into my absurdism. That's my philosophy.
Please.
So, but it was the answer to that question that shaped everything for me. It changed so much when you told me that. It flipped my perspective. So, I think you can find a way to
Segue.
Get that thread going.
Of course,
so
absolutely.
Start with the story.
So my father was a Jehovah's Witness elder for a brief point, and he would give sermons around town. This is my beautiful father, Tony. And he had this illustration he would give in his sermon. Do you want me to tell the joke first?
Yeah.
He would, and this is a lot fucking funnier if you know my dad, but he would give this illustration about a lump of clay.
Open your mouth.
And you get higher, like arc.
It's hard with the mic stand,
angled.
Dude.
Oh, that was so close. Wait, try to go up more.
I'm like usually good at this. This is sad.
Oh. Here, wait. I can do this pretty well. Where I go.
I can catch that shit easy.
Okay, let me get this out.
Dude, not Tony's fair, dude.
Sorry. So, my dad would give this illustration about how we are like a lump of clay. And if we open ourselves up to Jehovah God's influence, we can be molded into something beautiful, and because he's creating us as we are living. Outside of the context of Jehovah's Witness doctrine, that point I believe about God wholeheartedly. That's a fucking cool ass base to take. But that was my dad's fucking. My dad was based, even as a Jehovah's Witness. He looked at it from a different. Even when he was a Jehovah's Witness, he looked at it from a perspective. The parts of it that spoke to him were the profound parts of it, which there were a few, and he would talk about. So when he gave this illustration on stage while traveling and doing sermons, he would take a lump of clay that he kept with him in a Tupperware container. And he would pull it out and he would be like, look, this is what we are, and a lot of us have a resistance to God's influence in shaping us. And so you might need some water to add to the clay and to soften us up. The water representing, I can't remember what the water represented, the word of God or something, or maybe it was the influence of our friends and family that are encouraging our spiritual growth. But some people need a little bit more.
Like
something.
Church.
Yeah, right. But some people need a little bit more because they're harder and less open to God's influence. But if we do open ourselves up to God's influence, God is the sculptor and will be something beautiful. And when he gave this illustration, he would take the clay out of the Tupperware and he would just like play with it while he's talking. And then he would put it back in the container. But the interesting thing about this was up until he mentions it, which is maybe like 20 minutes into his fucking sermon, there's just a Tupperware container with this brown lump just sitting next to him the whole time. And people are like, why is that there? He would go up on stage with his Bible, his few note cards, and a Tupperware, you know? And so he started saying, he said it once during a sermon. He would be like, so we are kind of like a lump of clay. And he would open the container. And then one time he just went, for all of you wondering, this isn't my lunch. That's been sitting up here with me this whole time. And then it got a big laugh, so he started saying it every single time he gave the sermon. And sometimes it would get a laugh, sometimes it wouldn't. But it was just the funniest dad joke ever. To just be in this very serious, like, preacher context and just be like, this is my lunch here. It reminded me a bit of, like, I don't know, old school preacher type vibes. I'm just like, this ain't my lunch over here, you know? Which my dad was like a 5'2" Sicilian immigrant. He wasn't like a Baptist fucking like, yeah, y'all, the Lord's influence on that clay is the sculptor. And you know, it's more like, hey, this ain't my fucking...
You put a fucking 10-gallon hat in like a longer beard. He's the guy in Tombstone.
It's more like, yeah, this ain't my fucking Pomodoro in this fucking like gabagool up here. There's a lump of clay. You know?
Christ almighty.
Oh man. So
The answer.
One day, something terrible happened to a friend of ours. I was just in that mode. I was talking about in the previous episode how my mom was worked with homeless children most of her career, and some of the awful stories she would tell, like, some of these encounters with, terrible abusive parents, or, just situations, people that are amazing parents that are just put in these horrible situations and forced to be homeless with their, with the fucking whatever. And I was telling one of those stories in the previous episode and about how, it came to this point of just this why, just this fuck, why why
I came to this fuck.
Fuck, but that question of just like, God damn it, you see things that aren't happening to you directly and you're just like, why? Like, why? Especially in the context of thinking about religion and whatever. One of those situations essentially arose. And I asked my dad, Dad, now that we're away from the church, now that you have developed your own personal relationship with God and reading Stoic philosophy, and your worldview has been uprooted and changed and shit like that, I asked him, like, what do you make of shit like this now? And he was like, what do you mean? And I just said, what would be your answer now? Fucking, why do bad things happen to good people? And he told me, bad things happen to everyone. Being good is what makes us strong enough to withstand them.
And the difference is that people who are bad don't have the family and support around them to get through it the way that people who are good,
people that are kind, stick together. And if you are whatever can be labeled as a bad person, you're probably around people the same as you, and like there's a million ways to unpack what he fucking said, because it's like, even from a materialist, like secular standpoint,
really it's just a piece of clay and Tupperware, and you just take it out and you eat it. Right.
No, but just like, no, the profundity in that you can just pick that apart forever, because it was just like, first of all, it's a deeper and more mature interpretation of the Book of Ecclesiastes than any fucking Jehovah's Witness ever goddamn gave me, like what he said, just like raining on the righteous
and that's why he was in the
alike.
church.
And, yeah, that's what spoke to him, or all that fucking meat and that like existentialism and shit like that he eventually came to a phenomenal terms with.
The curse of the JW.
Yeah, right.
Shit.
No, but
cut that.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. No, but my father had a beautiful, very, very useful and profound worldview that I return to constantly. The shit he has told me and the books he's recommended me, and when I couple years after leaving the church, you see, when I left the church, I had nothing. I didn't have any guiding philosophy in my life. I didn't have any opinions about anything. I was like driven forward by my anger towards the Jehovah's Witnesses. And that was the thing, that I now believed in. The thing that replaced the fucking church for me was my hatred for the church and my campaign against it.
He dropped 30 points against the Warriors the other night. That's my motherfucker. Campaign.
No, but I fucking, when I was around 18 years old, had another, I guess, spiritual deconstruction because I realized that a lack of faith isn't anything to believe in. Yeah, all I really knew was what I didn't believe in. I didn't have anything to believe in. And I had another sort of what I would consider like a crisis where I was, but it wasn't as detrimental. It wasn't as destructive. I was just reading.
You get a counter for every time Maddie says crisis.
Shut the fuck up. Is it a comp?
You were 18, you had a crisis.
Right.
Maddie was 18, they had a crisis.
I fucking started reading like every fucking religious book and holy book I could think of. I read the Quran, I read the Bible again, I read the Tao Te Ching, I read some Upanishads of Buddhism and shit like that. And I was annotating shit too. And I was freaking out too.
You pre-gaming for
I was
the hell card.
Right. Yeah, literally. All this time. I was just preparing for Zach Gavin.
Always has been
Zach Gavin. But
it has.
I had a fucking intense vision because I found a fucking quote by Carl Jung that I really enjoyed. And it was through my dad's recommendations of Stoicism while he watched me like freak the fuck out. He was like, hey, Maddie, you're kind of freaking me out with all this fucking death talk and what is life and are we even real? You should read some of the books I was reading. Through that rabbit hole of Stoicism, I found a really, really nice Carl Jung quote that was, it appears that our only purpose is to kindle the light of meaning in the darkness of mere being. And I really like that quote. And
that, well, finish with your thought, but that leads me to my fucked.
Right, yeah. I want to toss this over to you once I get to fucking, so I had this
put me in, coach.
Vision when I was falling, because I had some really fucking weird dreams around this time too. It was almost like a second spiritual deconstruction. You gotta have an
episode on dreams.
Oh yeah,
that'll be mine. Hour-long talk.
Yeah, fuck yeah, dude. Because you have a lot of more of that. But
disturbed.
Fucking, I fell asleep with this very intense vision of two hands like this, and there was a flame in between the two hands like this, and I was like, oh, and I remember in that weird like hypnagogic malaise, I was like, maybe that's a nice tattoo idea, and I'll put the quote underneath, and I just passed out. When I woke up in the morning, I had this intense panic attack, and I was like, God, fuck. And it was just square one again of my whole like existential fucking that started it in the first place. And I was just like, oh God, I don't know where. And like I was unemployed at this point too. So I'm just like all day, every day thinking, I couldn't write for shit either. And I thought about that little thing, and I pulled out my phone, and I got this, when you go through YouTube rabbit holes and then like the recommended videos, the views on the recommended videos start going down and down and down because now you've entered like this weird corner of YouTube.
That's how everyone who doesn't know us got here.
Exactly. So you're on that, that. And a video popped up, and it was of the Unitarian Universalist Church. And it was the first Unitarian Universalist Church of Dallas was the name of the YouTube channel. And there was a Reverend Aaron White giving a sermon. And the fucking YouTube video had maybe 200 views. And I watched it. And it was called What is God? That fucking video, like, pulled me out of what I was feeling so quickly. Because it was just so encouraging to see a person in preacher's robes, in a formal setting, in a fucking church building where people are meeting. There's an organist. Like, this is an organized situation. And he's standing up there saying, I don't really know what God is at all, actually. And every tool that we have to explain the mystery and to experience the mystery and communicate our experience of the mystery will fall short because it's beyond words.
That's the Rush quote.
Yeah. And I'm just like watching this video, and I was just tripped out. I was like, this is amazing. It's just a bunch of like-minded people that get together and discuss their experience with the divine, whatever that means. And they read the Bible. And they're founded in a very progressive branch of Christianity, but have since become something way more. You know, there's Buddhists that are part of this church. There's Taoists. There's atheists, you know. And the logo of this organization popped up, and it was the fucking thing I had a dream about. It's a U and a U intertwined, and there's a flame in between in the middle of it. And I had this vision before I had heard of this church, you know, falling asleep. Now, am I saying that I was divinely inspired to dream this and then found it and identified with it in that way, and it was implanted in my brain? I don't fucking know. I don't think so. So no, that's not what I'm saying. Is that possible? I think the universe is so fucking mysterious that it would be very ignorant to rule that out. You know? All I know is that because I had that vision and then had that experience, I felt something deeply profound that connected me to my existence to an extreme degree. And if that is purely astronomical coincidence, it still lends credit to how poetic our existence is here. You know, maybe it's not metaphysical at all. And that still doesn't make it any less beautiful. So I started attending a Unitarian Universalist church in Sedona. That's where I met a gentleman named Michael, who was a card magician. And he had little business cards on cards, and he called himself Magic Mike.
This is like Arrested Development.
Isn't it? But that man practiced Tai Chi, and he introduced me to Taoism. I had already been relatively familiar with it through my existential fucking crisis where I was reading shit like crazy. And I reread the Tao Te Ching. I had like a fucking aha moment, breakdown with it because it challenged me so much. I didn't agree with a lot of what it was saying, and I was just freaked out by it.
I was here for all this.
Right, yeah. And
I'll throw up a photo.
I eventually, you know, after studying with the Unitarians in Sedona for a while, I found a nice, beautiful spiritual home in Taoism, and I practice regularly to this day. I consider myself a Taoist. But one of the most profound things one of the Unitarian Universalist priests ever told me was like, you know, existence, human nature, we're in a chapel like this, and there's all these windows in the chapel. And everyone, you know, is looking at the light outside through a different window. But the light outside is the light outside. It's the same. It's not a bunch of different lights, you know, but there's so many different windows, and they're all really beautiful, you know. If you feel like you don't need to look at the light through a window, you're fucking lucky, and God bless you. But some people find a window they like, and they're looking at the light, and it doesn't fucking matter at all because it's the same light outside. These are religions.
I don't need a window, and I agree with you.
Right. And see, that's the weird thing about where I'm at with my faith, because, you know, the ontological tradition of Taoism and those traditions and that color and those aesthetics and those that type of language in expressing, you know, the divine mystery, that appeals to me, and I find like very much comfort and identity in it, and it challenges me. You know, it pushes me. We got into that on the Zach Gammon episode about some of the concepts that challenge me about Taoism, that, you know, push me to grow. But the reason I was drawn to it so much is because the way they explain the mystery and the way they interpret reality seemed to me the most like cracking open the window and just looking at the naked light, you know, of just letting the universe unfold in front of you is a lot about what Taoism is. Yet still, I acknowledge that that's probably how those other windows feel to those people too, of other religions and things like that. But as long as you have an awareness of the divine that you're experiencing through the filter of an ontological tradition.
You know there's a filter.
You know, you have to, you don't have to, you can do whatever the fuck you want. But like, in my opinion, it's like, it seems ignorant to me to not acknowledge that the thing that is being translated to me through this tradition, through this religion, is something much greater than the religion, you know? And that's something I learned through the Unitarian Universalists, and that's how I found Taoism. And it's helped me in my life, like insanely amount of good. But there was another sort of, and obviously I incorporate a lot of different, schools of thought into my daily life, of course, because there's deep value in every, tradition. But one of them that appeals to me greatly and is a source of a lot of creativity is absurdism. And just some of the characters in absurdism. And did you want to discuss that? You want to take it from there?
Give me my lighter.
I don't think anyone can hear you right now.
Give me my lighter. I need a moment.
You can't even see the smoke on the camera.
That's absurd.
Ain't that absurd? So this is something that I am a little bit familiar with because I've read, and when you said that you were really familiar with it and wanted to talk about it, I'm so intrigued.
I'm not that familiar with it. I want to get more familiar. Your Carl Jung quote reminded me of it because it's like it's like a much more poetic version of Camus's quote. That is, the point of life, the meaning of life is whatever keeps you from killing yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Like, duh.
Yeah.
But you unpack that and it... Okay. So I'm a big believer in this guy who pushes a rock up a hill.
Average struggler.
His name is Sisyphus. Right? Now, Sisyphus's dilemma is that he was banished to push a rock up a hill for eternity. And every time he gets to the top of the hill and thinks it's about to be over, he's finally done it, the rock rolls right back down the hill, square one. And the poor fool thinks that he can do it. Now, that is a terrifying concept for any human.
Right.
To be cursed to do that for longer than our brains can fathom because we created time to create, tangible elements that we can put meaning behind. Like, time gives us meaning. Right? You strip time away down, there's no meaning to most people.
Nevertheless, eternity of doing something that you hate,
That, what you just said, is innately what we already are.
Right.
That is life, is the thing of absurdism. So the thing that I guess I could best explain this by saying, take that Sisyphus analogy, tie it to yourself. That's you going through your life, fucking, you're happy. Then some awful shit comes and fucks you up. And then you're done. You're fucking pushing that rock up a hill, square one. But you have to imagine Sisyphus happy. Because Sisyphus, it has fulfilled his purpose. His purpose is not to get the rock up the hill. You never will. He never will. His purpose is to roll the rock.
Right.
Right? That's the thing. And he's happy doing so because that's part of it. And so you expand on that a little more. Trauma and despicable chaos in our lives, which is unavoidable. Life, its nature is to change. And when people get so scared of it, they fucking drown. And they're just, if they get too far underwater, it's just like, if you believe in reincarnation, it's like you just got to die and start over with some people. And like, I think in terms of that, it's like sometimes I'll see a person and I'll be like, they're fucking far gone. Maybe in their next life, they'll, just get the ball rolling a little more, get the rock pushing.
Oh my God.
And it's cynical. But the thing is, we are all blessed to experience that chaos in life because it's part of life. Without it, there's no fucking good, to sound cliche.
Right.
But that's the glass half full way of looking at it. But I really don't think in terms of glass half full, glass half empty with this thing. I think of it just as like get to have water. Like there's water.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, that's great. It's imagining Sisyphus happy because when you are faced with chaos, you are being faced with the nature of life itself. You have the opportunity to be present in that moment and grow, and that's beautiful.
Well,
and so,
sorry.
What was I going to say now? I forgot. Fuck. I had it like a second ago. All right, whatever, say it.
You're being presented with life's true nature when you're experiencing chaos and shit like that.
Yeah. Fuck, I had something to say that took me off it. I don't know.
I was going to say something about there's a weird paradox about that when you like fully accept your situation, because it's like there's a difference between like stoically bearing your cross like Sisyphus and just going, and then complete complacency in your life. Like, I can't do any better. It's not going to get any better. You know?
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. So the fucking that allows you to, what I believe in is the fucking power of perception. The whole thing that I was talking about in Zach Gammon about the Nobel Peace Prize, and that you have the ability to shape your reality around you and perceive it differently. And so once you can third person the fucking chaos itself, you can kind of twist it in your mind. Yeah. And if you're aware of the potential for ignorance, it doesn't have to be just ignorance is bliss. I think that's when you start to get to the understanding of it just all is happening, and you kind of get all of it and you're okay with it all anyways.
Right.
And that's the enlightenment arc being fulfilled that I was talking about, and that leads you to act differently. There's things that you can do and there's things that you can't.
Right.
There's things that I can't do right now to save the war in Ukraine. It's despicable what's going on over there, and it does eat me up. I'm not saying, like, oh, I can't do anything about it, so what does it mean to me? That's what got us in to the mess.
Yeah, and it's not like a stoic perspective at all when you read these stoics to be inhuman like that and to not experience that anger.
Yeah, because if you get so far down this absurdist rabbit hole, you could so easily spiral into the nothing matters, and like it might as well all be chaos and destroy, and
yeah,
it's wrong. I think it's wrong to perceive it that way.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be about happiness and being more okay with your situation.
Right.
Because not only has it been like, yes, it just, so imagine, okay, so like you get some shit that just happened to you in your life that sucks. It just fucking got changed. That means you can change it again.
Right.
It has potential to change. That's its nature. So it will change again.
That's a part of complacency
I fucking live by this fucking quote by Abraham fucking Lincoln.
Nice.
Which is knowing that you will be happy again. And to derive from the quote, it's like even for a second, like if somebody tells a joke and you laugh half-heartedly for a second and you forget, and then 5 fucking seconds later you're back to the pit or rolling the rock up the hill, that will always happen. To know that and be sure of it will make you less miserable now.
Yeah. To know that one day you will smile
it
again.
Will always change like that. Yeah. And that's the whole thing with absurdism, that it's just life's nature to be fucking up in arms, and you can swim with it. You can go with the wave.
Well, the people that think that the statement "life is a joke," say that in a discouraging way, like, what do you don't like jokes? Like, that's the thing. And the thing is, there's a way to interpret absurdist philosophy that is extremely toxic. The bad ending of absurdism is basically just like a nihilist who revels in the pain and chaos,
which isn't really actually absurdism.
No, it's not
really,
because absurdism is almost like playful, like charming appreciation.
It's for acceptance, not fucking pity.
Yeah, that's true. And it's also, but it's also not revelry.
It's like acceptance that it's basically, it's like what I said. It's the fact that bad things happening and change are a part of life, and it is a great joy to experience life. So it is a great joy to experience life's hardships because you get life. Every fucking awful thing that happens is okay because there's an equal good force pushing back against it now or in the future or somewhere in the world.
Right, and that totality of that is not a that's not a duality. That's actually one fluid being.
Concept.
You know,
it's
that's
not
one
light
fluid
and
concept.
dark. It's all the same thing.
Right.
It's just how
In
you
different
look
forms.
at it.
Exactly, and that is not a duality or a binary the same way that good and evil is.
Mm-hmm.
Because that totality of that yin and yang, that constant flow of chaos and order, of darkness and light, that's all goodness. And the only reason we perceive it as bad and painful is because of our attitude towards it.
And I've thought that for years, and bad is inherently good because bad shapes good. That's the fucking seed in the yin yang.
Yes, but that being said, there is such a thing as evil. There's room in that philosophy to then say, well, there are certain things that should not happen that we don't have to come to terms with, that we can actually fight against. And that all comes down to human behavior, because we are the only creatures on this planet that have the ability to betray our nature. You know? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think we betray our nature due to, I don't know, glitches in our anthropological development.
Well, we're in the middle of that arc, but yes, glitches. But I don't think of it. You say glitches as if we're born with these flaws, and
no, I mean like
it's kind of yes, kind of not.
I mean contributing to evil on a mass scale, and our attitudes towards the world en masse stem from a few bad ideas that have permeated our culture and changed the way we look at things, you know, because they've been almost transmitted through certain forms of literature, like religions, that have happened to won the power struggle in human history and sort of change our perspective of looking at things, that keep us from, or hinder us to some degree from viewing that ebb and flow and labeling it as you know, do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's a few things that happen throughout history and a few ideas that have, you know, accidentally slipped into the water supply that have, you know, kept us from viewing the ebb and flow as a total good, and has instead caused
heaven
us,
and hell.
Yeah,
is a big one.
has made us equate the duality of good and evil with the ebb and flow of darkness and light. But they're two different fucking things. Because from a Western perspective, not to say that there isn't great value in Western ontological traditions, but, you know, a big pitfall that permeates our culture is the idea that one day, not only will good triumph over evil, but all the things we don't like, you know, will be defeated by all the things we do as well. We equate discomfort with evil. We equate death with evil.
And some equate change.
Yes, yeah.
Which is to go against the nature of life itself.
Right. And death, that's what death is, you know.
And that's
death
not evil,
change.
that's just disappointing.
Yeah, it just hurts.
It's just painful.
Yeah. Pain is good. Pain is appropriate.
Yeah.
Sometimes pain is just appropriate.
It's a great blessing sometimes, is the thing. But yeah, we're all just rolling a fucking rock up a hill all the time. We're Sisyphus, and if you think Sisyphus is cursed, then you're already putting yourself in a really nasty box.
Yeah.
Be cursed then. You know, I'll be over here with a smile on my face.
The question that we said we hated at the beginning of the last episode of, do you believe in God?
Yeah.
Do you?
Define God is what I would counter with.
Right.
Obviously.
Well, that's where we're going. Okay. So, obviously the question is fucking horrible, you know, but my point in asking you is like, what would you want to... Do you feel a connection to your being that is represented by any... that is represented semi-decently by any pre-existing interpretation of reality? And if so, which one would it be?
Okay, so for a long time I felt it was like kind of that Taoist philosophy that you kind of talked about in that Buddhist philosophy. And then I realized that maybe it was just narcissism.
Mm-hmm.
And that I, in fact, was just making it that way. I had all the power to associate that with these things. These religions are concepts that we created, rooms that we created. It's all things that we kind of made. We gave it that power.
Right.
It's the same concept with like, oh, there's a ghost or spooky ghoul. It's you
Right.
give it that power over you.
Definitely.
Same with anyone or any scenario. And then you kind of realize that if it's really truly just that perceptive nature of the eye of the beholder, you are that God. You can make anything you want to and associate it to whatever you want to. But at the end of the day, it is you and you
Right.
are it. It's the same thing. It is one. So in that sense, Taoism is pretty close.
Right.
Because it's that oneness with things. But even in Taoism, there's this kind of like disconnect between the indomitable human spirit and the concepts themselves. Like a little bit. It's just always viewing him from a third person lens
right.
instead of from the eye of the spirit. It's viewing the spirit as an omnipresent and describing it third person like an author, when really it's the best interpretation or the best description of the indomitable human spirit and that concept would be to just fucking sit down and write what you see.
Yeah, no, you're definitely
Because
right about that. Well, I would
that's
say
it.
the Tao Te Ching definitely has that pitfall, but there's other Taoist books like the Zhongzi and the Art of War that I think are from that perspective, that second one that you were explaining, that are pretty fucked. Like those are much more difficult reads for me than the Tao Te Ching itself. Not as in like trippy or like freaky, but like in a way of like I don't know what's happening, you know, because it's just so like Master Oogway shit, like of like what, because it's like stuff that's so benign that it will just meditate on for a minute until you go like, oh, I get it. Like there's great Alan Watts
But
quote,
there's nothing
like,
really to get, because if
Exactly.
you constantly think from the perspective of, oh, maybe I'm not getting it yet, you'll never truly
Well,
get
that's
it,
what I'm
because
saying.
by not fucking thinking that way and just experiencing life and being present, you're getting it.
Yes, that's why it's so trippy to read Taoism being a Western minded
Because
person,
there's
someone
no
raised
way
in an
to
Abrahamic religion.
there's no way that we're not telekinetic. We have to third person it to explain it to another person. So it's
Right.
inherently oxymoronic
That's
to
the
write a
amazing
book
thing.
about it. But it's so funny to watch someone acknowledge that in a
In the
book and a
writing
concept
itself.
and go, by the way, this is nothing, and you already have it. You already have it, and me
Right,
writing
that's
it,
the Zhongzi.
me writing it is convincing you otherwise in a weird way.
Well,
Because
yeah,
now
that's what's so
you're
fucking
believing
weird.
that there is something to get because I've told you there, and I might as well have not written the book and hoped you figure it out yourself.
Right.
But like then I won't get my thing going on because this is how I have to express it.
Exactly. But that's a lot. I mean, well, that's music too.
But either way, it all just exists. Take it or leave it. So why not? Why
Yeah.
Earth burns down. It was the way it would always have been, anyways.
I think the Bible, it's stupid, but everyone on earth should sit down and read the Bible one day, like cover to cover. Because I think there's such profound value in and poetry, especially in the Hebrew Bible, like in the Old Testament, there's profound poetry. But beyond that, to see it in all of its messy human folly and all of the detestable things that are in the Bible that I'm sure you're already aware of. If you're a thinking person, you just know that there's some fucked up shit in the Bible. But sit down and read it cover to cover one day, because you'll see the development and if you're not a Christian, like you'll see the development of the sort of tension between the violence and the folly, and then this story and this desperate wanting for something better, and this insanely optimistic, hopeful view of the world, like hopeful to a treacherous degree, like hopeful to a what is the word, ignorant,
and the whole
degree,
thing
but like,
with absurdism is not to say like don't believe that because it will only make you disappointed. It's believe the opposite because that will make you happy.
right. But the thing is about it is that it says a lot about what we value as humans. The Bible says so goddamn much about what we value in
But
aliens.
is that because we based what we value on the Bible?
No, because that's what I'm saying. Read it, because the people who wrote it, it says a lot about what humans value. Because look at because of what we wrote down here.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
okay.
Yeah, and it's obviously just a piece of fucking human culture and history. If you ever get a chance, Islamic poetry is also profoundly moving. As a person who would, for all intents and purposes, say that they believe in God, like I do, because every time you say God, if I had to explain,
we never defined God. Can we?
No.
Yeah, well, there you go. Define God. No.
But the thing is, if I could sit here and give a 30-minute fucking explanation, and I could do that every time someone asks me if I believe in God or every time I mention God. But for the most part, people get what I mean when I say God. So I say
outer thing.
Yeah,
something apart from yourself that drives some secret universal language or force that pushes the nature of things, whether or not it has an active agenda or it's just when a tree falls, the grass around it is gonna get spread out because the tree fucking came down on it. That was a force. That was a god.
Yeah, exactly. So it's whether you hit it. And so but my point is this is another thing I picked up from that Reverend Aaron White, the Unitarian Universalist Reverend, is that I say I love you to you,
This is good.
That's just English. That's just fucking words. And it got to our mouths and into our brains over just rolling the dice of random shit that we eventually started pointing at and making sounds for. So I love you. Yeah, I love you has the same fucking weight as Club de Blanche et Blanche. There's no fucking gold standard for language. That doesn't matter. The words I love you. And
it's a means to an end.
It's a means to an end. That's the point. And also, even accepting the means to an end is we know what love, the concept is, I love you. That still doesn't explain how I feel about you really, because of the things we've been through. And because of, our bond is I feel like we're siblings. And the shit that but I still say it.
We're more than siblings. We had this talk. It was 2 a.m. at the creek, and it was a full fucking moon, and I saw everything outside, and I sat next to you, and I was like, you are half of my soul that split off and went into another body, and it made so much sense.
Right. And again, whether that fucking means that is what literally was going on, or if it means that we relate to the story of that as a fiction, or whether it means, some weird in-between point. Doesn't matter.
That's so relating to the story of that as a fiction is such an intense concept that can just debilitate a person's mind if they're too hooked into the fiction.
Right, exactly. Well, that's true of every, useful fiction.
No, I literally believed in the fiction so much I almost knew I would be inclined to say that I meant it in the literal sense, but it would be ignorant in the chaos of this world
to say that for sure.
To disregard the other point in time.
Right, exactly.
Because, that would
my I love you point was my I love you point was that nothing, I love you does not explain what I actually mean when I say it, but I still say it because it's important to express that giant fucking mystery that we don't have time in a day to express. So we come up with the shorthand, I love you. And for the most part, as much as our little brains can take it, we get what we mean when we hear and when we say, I love you.
Yeah, so does
saying
it really
I
matter?
believe in God is the same thing. Does it really
matter to fucking, it's this and that, and I feel this, and to try and get to the bottom of I love you, when really it's a universal feeling experienced differently. So the shorthand, does do it justice.
It does,
if you perceive it too.
Exactly. So especially if you know the person who's saying
where the power is.
Yeah, if you know the person who's saying it too. That's why I came to terms with my belief in God. I do believe in God. For all intents and purposes, when people ask, I say yes. Because again, I'm not going to go into the fucking divine, all this insane, my fucked up ego perspective of my religion. And my religion's weird, insanely fluid perspective of what God could mean, I'm not going to go into that every fucking time it comes up. because it's a shorthand. And in the same way I love you doesn't give that statement justice, we still need to say it because it's important. I say I believe in God and I pray and I, carry myself as if, like I am a religious person. I think, Taoism is barely a fucking religion, but it's saved me,
it's
and
like
I practice it as if
it's kind of just like a fucking spider web floating in the wind.
Yeah.
It's kind of just like, oh, I can see like that kind of thing. It's like a sheath. It's like,
yeah. But the way I am, I'm a very
transparent.
routine is very good for me, and I really like.
Oh, that's just the ASD.
Right. Right. So that's why for me I practice it as if it
Yeah.
is a religion, like I practice it like that because that's my way of connecting with the divine.
What's so my while I have my like routines based in the physical world, like I get up and I do a certain thing, like what's weird is that my larger routine that's kind of balancing out my OCD that's coming with autism spectrum of like I have to do this thing and like fucking click my heels and like the ticking, is that my other routine is becoming the chaos of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is in the past has been a dangerous game.
Right.
But it's shift to a hopeful
We all
one.
need a bit of fucking unpredictable.
Dude, do you have the tie of the Flintstones doing the insurrection in my car or in your car right now? Because I need that.
I think I do.
Oh, good Christ! Thank God.
I think I do.
Good Christ! Thank God. Thank him.
Thank the Lord. Thank her. We found a tie at Goodwill.
No, don't even. Just don't.
We're just gonna show a picture.
No, it'll come out eventually. Just trust me. I've got a fucking vision.
All right, fantastic. So God. No, you know what Taoism has helped me profoundly with is my gender identity, and the fluidity of all things.
It's like what we were talking about with means to an end. It's all of these religions. It's up to us. It's our means to an end. If it gets you through that day, like what your dad was saying about, I don't know about that, the church. There's doubts. There's corruption in all of it, but I see what it does and what it helps, and
Right.
It helps family and it helps people, and that generally is universally perceived as good.
Right.
So if that's the means to an end, then
Can we find a way to distill that?
and the bastardization is merely the chaos that is its nature, then it's all good and we can just perceive things differently. Obviously, there are people who take it the wrong way and perceive the negative elements of certain things and it
Right.
becomes hateful.
Right, of course.
But that is its nature in a certain regard. It existing and having the potential for that.
It's in its nature to have the potential for it. Yes. I think humans bringing it out of it,
And it has to
that's a
exist
human
for us
evil.
to learn the lesson from it as humans, because we're not that capable to just exist. It has to, and if it hasn't happened, then great, but then it will, and we'll learn the lesson anyways. So it's a catch-22. It kind of has to be that way. So that's why I'm saying it's in its nature. Because if it hasn't become corrupt, if it never ever became corrupt, we would have never learned the lesson of corruption and that it shouldn't be. So
Right.
it would become corrupt anyways, and that it's just that.
But that's sometimes we don't have to, and that's a paradise-like vision of humanity. And it's very like rose-colored, but it's possible because the thing is, like the Thomas in the Bible. Okay,
I'm saying it has to happen for it not to happen. Like if it doesn't happen ever, like take it in terms of corruption happens or it doesn't. It happens, we have the potential to learn our lesson from it and create that paradise. It doesn't happen, we don't get that potential. So therefore, it kind of has to happen.
Unless we internalize the lesson without having to act it out.
And I'm
Because
saying
that's
when
the
it comes
thing
to
is-
concepts like that on things that we created, it's nearby impossible to do that unless you're just a floating spectacle of dust.
Right. You're just the rock.
You are
Everything
just
Everywhere All at
one.
Once.
You're the fucking clay in the Tupperware.
Well, okay. What I was gonna say about Thomas in the Bible is that like there's a anecdote about I can't remember if he was an apostle or if he was just
we
a
are
dude
just floating
who
specks
fucking
of dust.
followed
We just
around
have to
Jesus.
think of ourselves that way.
Right. This guy, Thomas, fucking when Jesus came back in the physical sense and resurrected, after being killed or whatever, or he came back as a spirit body, whatever the fuck sect you are, like the apostles accepted what he was saying at face value, except for Thomas. Thomas had to reach out and touch the scars in Jesus's body for him to believe that it really was him, and it's gross. He has to fucking touch his like dead, charred, fucking open wounds, and he was like, "I believe you." The rest of the apostles accepted it before that. Jesus had to take Thomas's hand and put it into his body for him to accept that it really was him. And Jesus says to him, "Blessed are those who don't see but believe." Right? Now that's a very like walk by faith, not by sight, which is fucking ignorant.
I'm saying it's difficult to say that we would know to believe if we hadn't seen, to come up with the concept of believing without seeing, because one has to exist.
No, of course.
For the other two, believing without seeing implies the existence of the seeing. And
right.
That would mean we have had to see it.
Right, but the perspective of the human possibility of internalizing the truths.
That's down the road.
Because we were born with them, Like whatever the rules are of the universe, like we can't fucking, whatever that is, it's in our hearts. It's it's written into our fucking souls. And so the point is, there are things that we don't need to fucking, but it's also a temperament thing. Some people get lessons and they're pragmatic and they're cautious and they go, oh, I get okay, and they turn around and they don't want to. Some people, like myself, need to walk right up to the precipice of fucking disaster before we go, okay, fine, yeah, I get it, and walk away. This is why I get into, why I've gotten in toxic relationships before, why I've had, I can't see the signs, I can't take advice, I can't imagine what could happen. Well, I do that all the time, but I do it fucking anyway. I go through with it anyway because I'm fucking Thomas. That's where the term doubting Thomas comes from.
I'm saying that potential for that, down the road, that oneness without the seeing is only possible because we're experiencing the potential for the opposite right now coming to life. One exists with the other. You see what I'm saying? They both exist without and with each other, going down to that seedling of potential to happen. The cat, that's the whole thing about the Nobel Prize, is that the cat is 50% dead, 50% alive in that box until you open it. It's that potential to fucking open it that drives things. It's not just do you get what I'm kind of saying with that? It's possible down the road, because right now it's possible clearly because it is the current case that it is not.
Right, or so what I'm saying is then,
and when we get to that point, this will have never existed. And right now in this point, that has never existed.
Yeah,
but they are reactive of one each other, and that's what they found with the fucking particle going up and going down instantaneously,
right,
without time or the speed of light.
That I don't get.
Okay, well, it's kind of the same, innately with each other. Imagine the one as yin and one as yang.
Right.
One goes up, the other goes down. They don't travel in terms of time or speed of light. They have innate physical properties. Because this one exists and is up, this one also exists and is down.
So they don't exist independent of each other.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, gotcha.
And that is also the universe we live in. It's not locally real. Or they would be.
So it's this radical, almost scientific explanation of oneness.
Yes.
It's everything exists.
There you right.
Everything,
there you got it.
Everything down to the fucking atom exists in relation to another thing. So it's where did it fucking begin then?
That's the fucking question of the Big Bang. And because there was nothing and then there was the Big Bang, it's well, how did the Big Bang then? If there was nothing, it was the potential for both. And when there was nothing, there was no Big Bang. And when there was a Big Bang, which is the current reality we live in, there can't have been nothing because something had to have been done to make the Big Bang.
Right.
But without the Big Bang, there was nothing. And with the Big Bang, there was not nothing. Do you see what I'm saying with that?
Well, we can't be in a reality that isn't. So of course we are.
But we are. Of course we are.
Because if there wasn't anything, there wouldn't be nothing that isn't. So, and here we are. Holy fuck.
You got it now.
Let's wrap it
You've
up.
been saying you couldn't get it, but that's it. It's the whole
get it
the
from
whole
a
concept,
scientific perspective.
the
I don't
whole
fucking get
concept
it.
that I'm
Like,
talking about with the fucking down the road, that oneness is the same thing. The nothing before the Big Bang knew nothing, and once the Big Bang happened,
right, I know, but the idea of like
that's why
human-
time is a fucking construct, because in a world where that's true, which it is, because it's not locally real. Time can't be real because that would imply the existence of nothing, then a Big Bang, then something. And it's like the only way scientifically that it's possible to be real, because the fucking Big Bang exists and that's the reality. And so there was no nothing. But for that to be real, there had to be a nothing and no Big Bang. It's all happening at the same time. That's the interstellar room. That's the fucking ability to sort through. That's the Jesus Ali. You can leave this room at 10:45,
Oh, God,
which had some truth.
Don't give any credit to anything Jesus Ali ever said.
No. I am. I am.
No.
I am. But that's what I'm saying. And it's a lot to handle. And I might sound like an insane person, but I swear if I'm not explaining it right, it's because my means to an end are simply not there yet.
Well, I understand it entirely from a philosophical standpoint about oneness and about dependent existence and shit like that, but I don't understand how they fucking discovered this scientifically with the Nobel thing, because I don't fucking know shit about physics.
Well, they just looked at it in a particle accelerator, to my knowledge.
I don't know what a particle accelerator is. I don't even really know what a particle is.
They just basically got to monitor to like take just imagine
what is
them,
a monitor?
Just imagine them as
imagine what is that?
Imagine them as just atoms. Just picture them as atoms. One atom goes up, the other one goes down. Usually when two atoms are in link with each other, independent of each other, they have to communicate. Communication takes time. Usually the fastest thing in the universe is the speed of light.
Right.
E equals mc.
What about the speed of time?
Mass times the speed of light square equals energy. That fridge has energy just by existing it, and it is its mass times the speed of light squared. So it would have to travel some time to communicate. They went down in the same exact time.
Your mom went down
as if they were
night.
the same thing. Yeah. As if they were the one particle moving like this. No communication, as this one went up and this one went down was the same as this going up and this one going
exactly.
It was
no communication was necessary.
It was one like fucking unit.
Exactly. It's like how I went up and your mom went down. And there was no communication necessary. That's what it all comes down.
So pretty much. And so yeah. That innateness, there was no fucking reason. There was no is the cat,
it had no business.
Is the cat making noise? Maybe I can figure out if it's alive. It's like, oh shit, no, it's just 50% alive, 50% dead, and it is what you make it.
Well, I think we covered everything. We covered everything. This concept of everything in this episode. And it's about time to wrap it up.
Yeah.
And I think I have an excellent song to play us out with. And you all will know it before Zach does, because you're listening to it right now.
I have to edit it in.
Oh, yeah. So, Zach, you're currently listening to it right now.
So I actually will know it before all of they do, because I'm going to have to put it in there. But
that Zach exists right now, though, doesn't he?
I'm going to scream.
So do they. So do we. That's the room that we created and the room that we will one day destroy. It's entropy, baby.